Okay, good afternoon. I know you're all eagerly waiting 20 minutes away from kickoff of the Champions League and later on tonight the CONCACAF Champions League, but we're going to hit on a really important topic in our business, and that is sports media and sports media rights. And with me is a really interesting and distinguished panel who cover the entire gamut of broadcasting, and we have it from the broadcaster side with Alberto Sosa. He is the Director General of TUDN and Televisa. They are a combined company now. To his left, Adam Schneider. He's the Senior Director of Media for Sport 5. They're an agency in the soccer world. And on the far end is, many of you know, is Oscar Sanchez. He is the Executive Producer of Broadcast Operations for CONCACAF.
And I brought my team to cheer.
And you brought the team. The team's here.
We're in team.
Of course. So I want, before we get into the questions, let's put some historical context on where we are in the business and the explosion of rights. Let's take it back with where we are now. We have the FA Cup is on about 7 million. The Bundesliga is on about 41 million a year with ESPN. That's up 400 and almost 500% in the last deal. Serie A is up 40%. They're almost at 70 million. The Champions League between Univision and CBS are paying about 150 million. That's up 40+%. And then there's the EPL, the giant monster of this whole thing. And the EPL is on a $450 million a year contract. So what does that mean? 9 years ago, when Fox had the rights for both English and Spanish together were worth 30 million, roughly. That's a 15x difference. So I'm going to start with you, Alberto. Here are the numbers. We understand that the way soccer is produced and the way it is on the screen, we don't have a lot of opportunities for commercial insertion on the clock. Some of the leagues don't allow it. Some of the properties don't. Is this a sustainable system that we have now in this business with the rights fees where they are?
Every time it's harder. I mean, with regards of the Mexican market, we have a very specific model, probably one of the unique models in the market, because we have to go and get the rights directly from the teams. So our business model is based in certain number of games by tournament, and of course the teams participate in those games. So we have to go and get the better teams, the most popular teams available as possible. So that can be useful for us to do our business profitable. So actually we have in Mexico, we have the rights of 10 teams, and here in the US, 14 teams. But it's a single model business perspective. I mean, it's difficult to handle, but it is what it is. It probably has to change in the future. I'm certainly know that it will change, but we don't know when and how. We have to work on it.
We're going to get to that. Adam, you're an agency. Where do you stand on this? What are the groups that you're working with? How do they react to the explosion in the rights fees?
Sure. Yeah. In the soccer space, we're working with the USL at the moment on their international rights package, and obviously they're waiting with bated breath, I think, with all of us to see how things shake out with MLS here in the US, and I think that we'll see them act quickly once that market shakes out a little bit. We work with a very diverse portfolio of rights in and out of soccer, but in the soccer space, we're currently working with Real Madrid on their 24/7 channel, distributing that in unsold markets with a number of UEFA club league teams in the Champions League and Europa League qualifying, the Portuguese Taça da Liga, we work with, and a number of other leagues in Europe and Asia primarily. So when we're looking at the landscape, I think the two things we're always keeping an eye on are incentives and competition. Right, so the incentives haven't really changed yet. I mean, we're still in the ad revenue model and the direct-to-consumer model. The live sports offering is still king. It's one of the few things that can get everyone engaged at the same time, whether it's watching live on TV or on their phone or whatever it is. But the habits, the consumption habits, are really important to us, and the way the younger generation, which by the way doesn't necessarily mean 10-year-olds, it can mean 20-year-olds, the 25-year-olds and 30-year-olds. The way they're consuming this content is changing. So we're looking at, what does that mean with the clip rights, with the highlight rights, with the betting rights, all the various ways you can monetize the same content and how that's developing as the consumption habits change. And then with competition, if you have one interested party, you can get a deal. If you have two, you can get a great deal. If you have three and one of them's Apple or Amazon, now all of a sudden you're pretty happy with your situation. So that's a huge factor as well.
We're gonna get to all that. Oscar, he's in the catbird seat, right? They're the rights holder, and now you had major competition with streamers coming on board, and you have multiple rights holders for your different competitions. So how do you guys look at it on your end to maximize revenue and yet be in partnership with your broadcasters? Because you want it to work both ways. You want a win-win.
Yeah, I think, Jason, the most important thing is to approach this relationship on a win-win situation. Because at the end of the day, it's just as our president said this morning, business is really important, revenue is really important, but you do nothing with a partner that gives you a lot of money, but the partner is not behind your product the rest of the years. So you want a partner that is going to be giving you screen, is going to be supporting your product, is going to be supporting your initiatives. So you want that kind of partner. So you need to evaluate very well, be ahead of making the decision on what partner are you going to take. For us, it's fantastic what is happening right now, obviously in the world itself, because there are many opportunities, and it's not only important for us from the revenue point of view, it's important for the consumers, because this is a great time. We were talking this morning, and probably I'm going ahead of your game with mentioning this, but this morning we were talking that 5-8 years ago in this country, if you wanted to watch the qualifiers, or maybe 12 years ago, you need to go to a bar to do it on a pay-per-view because you cannot find your qualifiers. Right now, there are so many services that you as a fan, as a 14-year-old, you would not forgive your network or your service if they don't have the game that you want to have, or if they have it delayed. That's a fantastic time for us.
Let's play a game. I want to play a game. How many of you remember, as Oscar mentioned, how many of you remember a time 40 years ago, for those of you who are a little bit older, where you had to go to the Miami Highlight Fronton and watch the World Cup on closed circuit? Raise your hands. Anybody? Maybe not anybody old enough in here. Okay. Let's fast forward 20 years. If you wanted to watch the FA Cup, a specific game, if you wanted to watch the best matches in the Premier League, you had to spend $360 a year for a certain package. Okay? And you had to spend $20 to go to a bar to watch an FA Cup game. Then we all had, from 2004-ish, 05-ish to 2015, we had just by pay TV. Yeah. And we get everything in this country. And then that changed again because now we have streaming. And we have multiple streamers all competing and using, the irony is, using soccer as the guinea pig and the soccer fan as the guinea pig. With all, I'll go with Adam on this one. With all the outlets, the soccer fan has to pay an exorbitant amount of money. Peacock, you've got to have Peacock. You need to have ESPN Plus. You need to have, you'll definitely have to have HBO Max with the U.S. national team games. And so many more that are popping up. Yeah. So where does it stand? What is too much for the soccer fan to say, I'm only going to do this. I'm only going to buy these types of streamers
Yeah.
because I just can't afford it.
Well, I think it's too much now. I think as a consumer, it's a complicated landscape. You're dealing with platforms that have varying degrees of sports market share. So some of them are sports focused, some of them are not, which means a very different product when you enter their platform and try to engage with the sport of your choice. And that's tough for the consumer. I think when it comes to the media rights landscape, market share is so important. Right now, when it comes to whether it's the mainstays like the ESPNs of the world who have the digital platforms, or the brand new outlets that are out there that didn't exist 2-3 years ago, they're all trying to muscle each other out of the room as best they can. So even if a property is not necessarily profitable in year one, you're looking for a long-term deal. You want to make that a 5, 6, 7, 8 year deal so that you can really maximize value on the back end, minimize your risk that way. But also so that your competition doesn't have it for 5 to 6, 7, 8 years as well. And, possibly that's one less competitor to worry about, which will then, of course, affect that landscape that you're talking about for the consumer.
Alberto, I want to bring up Liga MX. It's the most watched league in the United States. Everyone talks about the Premier League, but in terms of just domestic leagues, Liga MX is the king. The question I have for you is, do you think you'll see a point where there will be centralized rights, where all 18 clubs all go in together and bid it out here in the United States? And what is the factor of the new Leagues Cup within that whole ecosystem?
Well, I think that is going to happen. The rights in certain moment will be centralized. I don't know when, but it's going to take a while. First, the conditions in the market have to be settled. We have to analyze the infrastructure of every team. So now it's different. We don't have all the teams all the same level of infrastructure. We don't have a business investment in every team. So I think yes, the rights will be centralized. I think in certain moment Mexico's market will expand to the U.S. The natural expansion territory is the U.S. I think in certain moment there will be a merge between Liga MX and MLS, because Liga MX, as you mentioned, has a very big fan base here in U.S. MLS has a great infrastructure, and every time they're getting more and more players of quality. So it's Mexico versus US is a great rivalry in terms of sports, in terms of marketing. So yes, it's gonna happen sometime.
Adam, your thoughts?
Well, I think one thing I want to highlight there is when you talk about something like the Leagues Cup, that's a great example of a way to sort of add value, right? So you have a product that's trying to get these giant rights deals from the broadcasters, and you can't just go back and say, well, you paid X last time, now you're paying 3X, 4X. You have to come in there with a mindset of how do we make this better for both sides. So adding these competitions, or in this case, kind of tweaking or improving these competitions to make them more valuable, is the win-win. And again, when you're looking long term, it's something you want to grow together. The last thing that someone wants to do as a broadcaster is pay exorbitant rights fees for a product they have for 3 years. They build it up for year one, in year two they're renegotiating, and then in year three it's gone.
Well, that's the Champions League.
Exactly, and that's a tough model.
And look, they've bounced around.
Yeah,
and they
exactly.
really haven't found, except for you guys at Univision, who've had it consistently, it keeps bouncing around. They can't find a home. They can't find consistency. They're getting more money, but are they really taking it to the next level, because they're bouncing around everywhere? We don't know where it is.
It's challenging, and again, frustrating as well for the platforms too, right? I mean, you had it on Turner in their ecosystem last time, and And there's only so much you can do to build it up in that 1 year, because they literally lost it in the second year. I mean, they were basically lame ducks in year 3 on that. And what's your incentive to grow it at that point? That's a third and maybe even 2/3 of your rights cycle almost wasted when it comes to growing a product and evolving.
Right, and the EPL did that for a long time as well. It was 3 years, 3 years. NBC got 6, and now they got another 6, and now they can build like, this is our home.
Yeah.
We're here, and we're here. And you want to watch the EPL, you watch it on NBC. Oscar, CONCACAF has changed the way things are. There's more competitions. There's more women's competitions. Do you see added value? Where do you see the added value with youth competitions coming back, with women's competitions, and the new Nations League? How does that all kind of work together in your whole ecosystem when you go to market?
I think it's for us, it's great, because if we just speak about the US market, for instance, there has never been so much, and sorry, I'm having issues with my microphone. If I would be veterinarian, I would not be, but as I work in this business, basically, we have never seen or offered so much women's football in this market as we have done it in the last 2 weeks. In the last 2-3 weeks, we have produced over 100 games of women's football, including the qualifiers home and away, and we have showed them not only here in the US, but in all our region. We just finished the women's U20 in Dominican Republic with 40 games, with a Puerto Rican team making it to the semifinal. That was fantastic, a great story, and the women's national team playing. And for us, going back to your question, it's been great because we have partners like TUDN that we've been for a long time. They have helping us growing the product. So Champions League that we are playing tonight, NYCFC against Comunicaciones, the fans know where they go. And the fans in English know Fox. Fox has been doing a tremendous job. So we have been lucky to find the right partners, and lucky also to do a good job on finding new partners. Paramount Plus has been fantastic, offering the opportunity with all these women's games, and they have been doing a great job also with the NWSL. So for us, it has been great. And it's, at the end of the day, Jason, it's fulfilling that obligation that we have with our fans, because the hardcore fans, just like you with your father 40 years ago, used to go to this place to watch the game. The hardcore fan is looking for the game. So we need to fulfill that obligation with the fans here in the US, in all the rest of the other 40 member associations, and making sure that they can watch the game in a platform that it's available for them easily and, live, which is important.
So, Alberto, TUDN and Univision have a vast rights portfolio in so many different leagues and competitions. You guys have a AVOD, an advertised-based VOD with Prende. Explain, now you guys, with your merger with Televisa, you guys are now going to get into the OTT side and direct to consumer. Maybe you can explain it, and how that market, the Hispanic market, has really not been touched, has not really been serviced so far on that platform.
Yeah, the new platform, it's called VIX. It's going to be launched March the 31st, this next two weeks. And we think it's a global streaming product that it will have two different experiences, AVOD and SVOD, all in one single app with different content. It's going to have access to all major platforms, not only in US and Mexico, but also in the 19 territories, Spanish-speaking countries in Latin America. We will launch along with this platform the new Zona TUDN 24/7, Zone TUDN 24/7, which will include all sports, extended coverage, exclusive interviews, talk shows, analysis, etc. So we have a vast content in this new platform, and obviously we will have Univision's content and Televisa's content in one platform.
So that's a powerful play for you guys.
We think
For sure. And for a rights holder, they come to you like, you could be serviced, right? Where you come to, if you're on it's not just how much money we're going to get. Obviously, that's the most important thing. But it is, how can we reach the most people in our universe?
Yeah, I think it's that, and it makes your life easier in one of your main tasks on an everyday basis, which is you need to communicate to your fan base where your games are going to be.
No question.
That's the most important task that we all have. It's making sure that Jason knows where the game is going to be tonight. So when you have a platform, or when you have partners that have different platforms and offer you the opportunity that no matter if it is your top Gold Cup game or U15 boys, it's going to be visible and available for the fans. That's a great opportunity for all of us. I think it's when we were talking about a bubble, but I think it's a bubble but with great opportunities, because it's allowing us and the fans to access content that was never accessible before.
It's true. You were very fortunate here in the United States to be able to watch literally almost every league in the world. I mean, it is of the top leagues, South America, Europe, Asia, Australia, North America. I mean, it's incredible. Adam, we're talking about streaming, and we're also going to talk about AVOD. So you've got AVOD, you've got people like Fox who don't have a direct-to-consumer. They've got Tubi, and you've got Pluto, and Prende TV that Univision has.
VIX.
Right?
It's going to be VIX.
Yeah, and that'll be the change name, right? Of course. So where do they come in this whole ecosystem? It seems like they're kind of like more of a secondary channel, a runoff place versus a first level, first tier. Do you see AVODs making their way into be more of a live sport home in the future?
I think that's definitely a lot of their goal. I mean, you're seeing some of these platforms are getting major, growth, major market share. They're getting, tons of eyeballs on them. You look at a platform like, Pluto or Roku. The monthly, viewership rate there puts them on par with like a Comcast in terms of the reach they're getting. They are well funded in many cases, backed by Paramount or Fox, respectively, and I think they're making moves into that space. In many cases, though, they haven't really quite cracked the nut, because a lot of these companies, really are tech companies first that are kind of entering into sports space as a natural evolution of entertainment and movies and things like that. So they're being, in many cases, kind of cautious about jumping too far into the deep end. They're not necessarily willing to pony up the giant rights fees to compete for the major properties. But I don't think we're that far off from seeing them jump in a big way on some of the more attainable properties in the near term. I think the appetite is there, and they're starting to grow. We're talking to them on a regular basis. They're starting to grow their teams to focus on dedicated sports acquisitions.
I want to follow up. So you have Fubo TV, which started as a soccer service, believe it or not.
Yeah.
They get the South American World Cup qualifiers. They've made a deal with Fox for hundreds, probably thousands of games with the new UEFA deal. Where do you see an MVPD or a virtual MVPD like them? Is it a YouTube TV? Is it an Apple TV going forward as players in the space?
Well, you see them already in Canada, making a splash as well, with Serie A rights for Fubo. And Fubo's interesting because they've got two different ways they can really take advantage of sports content. They can acquire a channel for their MPVD platform, or they can buy content for their the individual channel that they have that they then distribute to the other set-top boxes or the other MPVDs as well, the Fubo Sports Network. And then with something like Serie A, they can actually put that in front of the paywall if they need to, or separate from all the the EPG, the program guide. So you don't have to watch along the same schedule as everything else. You can watch it on demand, every channel, every game simultaneously if you like. So I think they're certainly ramping up. I mean, you can see some of the hires they've made recently. They are actively in the market. Sportel right across the bridge. You're seeing a presence with Fubo. You're seeing more of a presence from some of their competitors as well. We're having much more regular conversations about licensing kind of one-off content as opposed to full channels, which is a huge departure for them. And again, they're growing, so they're getting they pay a premium to get access to Fubo TV, and their subs are growing dramatically in the U.S. and Canada. So it's given them a little bit more of a backing to do this. I think there's a real chance them or someone like them is going to be front and center sooner rather than later.
So Alberto, you brought up before the issue of how rights will change in the future. What are some of your thoughts, and we'll kick it around to all of you, about how a broadcaster goes into negotiations with upcoming rights that are going to happen, and using everything that's going to be coming into this new world, whether it's metaverse, virtual, all these new technologies that we don't even know about that are going to come. What are your thoughts about how it's going to change the way broadcasters start bidding on things?
I think if rights are centralized, it's going to be much more easier. So we have one product for everybody. So this could be one of the easiest way to provide the content our audiences are waiting for. No? So I think that the key word is centralize and think in the new ways of distribution of the content.
So to follow up, Adam, are you seeing? I think the best way to put it is that there's different ways that rights can be split up. The NFL splits up their rights 100 different ways. It's confusing. It's a bad experience personally for me. I've got to have multiple accounts going because that can only have DirecTV, one tablet. I need my phone can only be on this because Yahoo has the rights. My point in for soccer is, do you see a point where clip rights will be so popular that there'll be its own separate bid? You'll have a broadcast, you might have a digital play, but you might have a clip play that a lot of soccer organizations are thinking about selling on their own.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, to think about what that might look like. I don't know that it would be as simple as a clip right play that would be handled separately as its own bid, but I think that there's a way to layer different types of rights within a tender process, and give people the option of getting more involved on one side or the other. With everything, it's the leverage. It goes back to the leverage. So NFL has the most leverage in the world, so they can literally take the last 30 seconds of the game and sell that to somebody if they wanted to. But we're going to see which brands kind of put their foot in the sand when it comes to the broadcasters. Draw the line in the sand, I should say, with demanding basically full exclusive, full everything, or they're walking away. And by the way, it's with them goes that giant outsized payday that we've all gotten used to. And when you don't have that second buyer, in the wings ready to make that same bid, they retain all the power. So I think there's certainly a chance to split it up, but you really have to have separated yourself as the premium soccer brand that can pull that off, because I don't think you can do it 10, 11, 12 different times with that many different properties. I think we're a little ways off of that.
Oscar, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I think just like in everything in life, you need to think on your final consumer. So the worst thing that you can do right now is throwing all your rights into a single package just because Adam is giving me more money than anybody. Because maybe Adam's focus is not on women's football,
right,
for instance. So we are carefully curating the partners that we're engaging with to make sure, again, just like I said at the beginning, that we have the right partner for this. Because if we continue throwing rights, what we're going to see is that the value of the product is not going to increase because, oh, you gave it to me, so why are you asking me $2 for it when you gave it to me for free? So if you don't get money, you cannot continue developing. And the other thing is that you need to be respectful of the consumer, because the consumer that goes to a betting platform is looking for something specific. So if you go to with a partner that doesn't have activation on the betting side, you, at the end of the day, are affecting your prospects of increasing the fan base on that side that everybody's talking about, which is betting right now. So you need to be careful to make sure that your partner is going to activate in that specific area. Same with any other rights. I mean, you need to look for if you want to activate on the free-to-air, make sure that your partner has a strong strategy on the free-to-air side. So that's the key when it comes to picking the right package and picking the right partner.
This is for everybody in anywhere you want to go. FIFA, the FIFA calendar. Oh boy. It's a big topic in the sport. How does it affect your business?
In our case, a lot, because we have our calendar of events already set in this specific year. So in sales-wise, December is a very good month for everybody. It's where you have the major investments in terms of commercialization. So we will have double offer this winter. So it will affect us because we will not be able to potentialize the business as planned before. So, and other effect is that all the leagues calendars will be affected again. So it's hard for us trying to accommodate every single event along the year. So it's going to be tough for us.
Adam?
Yeah, I mean, when you're dealing with the uncertainty of the calendar and the future, it certainly has an effect in the way we evaluate on the acquisition side, as well as how we perform on the sales side. We can only affect what we can affect from the agency perspective. So we try to mitigate our risk. If it means being a little less aggressive on acquisitions, if it means unloading properties, meaning selling properties earlier than you might have done so in the past, something where you can maximize value now so that you're not potentially risking value down the road. That's something we're taking a look at a lot more whenever there's uncertainty. And for us, it means diversifying the portfolio in and out of soccer. So we're in the soccer space in basically every major continent, and then outside of soccer, thousands of hours of content in basketball and swimming and handball and athletics and every sport under the sun. So that's the key for us, is we can't let it become a risk that can sink us.
Oscar, I mean,
I think the question is not only for me, it's for my colleagues, because
it's such a, I mean, I can't even imagine. You guys have rights deals. You've signed another rights deal. You have competitions in line. You have multiple competitions. And now all of a sudden, FIFA may just go whoop like that and change it.
Yeah, I think, Jason, we've been responsible enough to create our bills and organize our deals, based on the calendar that we had so far. And when this announcement of a possible change in the calendar came, we were lucky that we did our homework before. Therefore, we're in a position that we have everything until 25, 26, and we're waiting to see what happened afterwards, to see how do we negotiate our next deals. It's not easy because, again, we've been working in this. We worked really hard during COVID. Probably COVID was one of the times that we have worked hardest, because we were working on the calendar beyond 26 and 30, and we were ready to go and sit down with all partners and say, hey, guys, we're ready until 2030. And this came, but we've been doubling that work to make sure that we're ready for that. I guess it's a lot of uncertainty, but it's a conversation that needed to happen, because there's a sector that says, no, this is never going to happen, should never going to happen. There's another party that says it should happen in somehow. So But it's going to affect not only, and it's affecting not only the men's calendar, but also the women's, that it's really important that we're developing. We just launched our women's ecosystem with the Women's Championship happening this year, with our first Women's Gold Cup happening in 2024. So we had that already mapped for the next cycle. So we are holding our horses, but getting ready to get on that horse when the time comes.
Alberto, how important is sports wagering and possible new digital feeds and second screen feeds are for revenue generation for Univision Televisa?
Well, it's very important. It's one of the major options. The thing is, how we have to figure how are we going to capitalize that specific window or other options of windows. The size of the market, it is what it is in the case of Mexico. So as long as we can be creatives in the ways to commercialize all those contents we have, no matter what the window is. So it's going to be difficult because the Mexican market is not growing at the same speed that the cost of the rights and the amount of the events we're carrying.
Right. It might be a cultural thing, that it's just different. Right. Sports wagering could be completely different in Latin American countries.
It is definitely a matter of culture.
Adam, your thoughts about how broadcasters can monetize through sports wagering in this space, in soccer, where it's way different. The sport's so much different than the other ball and stick sports in North America.
Well, I mean, I think what we've seen over the past few years is that it's become so much more important for the broadcasters to include sports betting in the discussion, or betting rights in the discussion, even when they had no rights to monetize before it was even legal. But when we were on the doorstep of sports betting legalization, it was pretty clear we were heading that way. You were seeing those rights be scooped up and be paid for, a bit of a premium to pay for them, even though a lot of the broadcasters had zero intention of even using them over that cycle. Just an asset to hold on to in case it does become valuable. I think that a lot of these betting partners or these broadcast partners that we're seeing are starting to make really important relationships with the sports betting houses. They're figuring out a marketing strategy to get more active involvement with those games. And for soccer, for what I see is the in-game betting is kind of the key driver, right? So you have the kind of standard betting operation on the wins and losses, but in-game betting is critically important because you can go 100x on the amount of bets you can make on a single match, and those betting streaming rights are what we're waiting to see what a lot of the major broadcasters do with those, because so far a lot of those are sitting on the shelf right now, but they do have major value that can be potentially separated out into separate deals whenever possible when you have that leverage.
Well, we know there's some major rights coming up. I think it's MLS, right, by the end of the year. Strengths and weaknesses of MLS's position right now. I'll start with you, Adam.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of ways to look at MLS, right? It's a hugely important product for American soccer, and there are many people, many platforms out there that are very highly invested in the success of American soccer. So it's important that MLS does well, and it's important that that it finds the right home and continues to grow. I think when you're looking at it from a broadcaster's perspective, we've seen some of the ratings, we've seen some of the results, and it doesn't perform as well as we all hope it will. But it's still a very important product, and I do think it's commanding a lot of attention right now in the market. We're going to find out soon just how much attention. But I think, again, when we talked earlier about the idea of market share, if you don't have the MLS, that means somebody else who maybe doesn't have any major sports rights right now and isn't a competitor is going to come up and grab them, or one of your competitors comes and grabs them, and now your direct-to-consumer offering has just lost a ton of valuable volume and content. So it's more than just a ratings game, when it comes to the MLS. And I think that, I'm optimistic that they're going to find the right home and get a good value for their rights in part because they've done so much to create added value to their package beyond just the standard package that they sold, 6, 7, 8 years ago. I think that they're doing a good job in that respect.
Alberto, how does MLS fit in with the whole scope of what Univision is doing in the soccer space?
I think it is a great chance to expand the business. I think MLS and Liga MX, with the League Cup, it's going to be the first step that will be ending in a new entity called, let's say, League of North America, a unique model in the world with more than 40 teams participating in a big market between the two countries. So I think it's very in the US, MLS is very important and could be very important in Mexico also, as well as Liga MX expanding here in the US.
Yeah, certainly the Leagues Cup expansion is a very, very big carrot for Hispanic broadcasters.
I see Leagues Cup as the first step.
Yeah, but also take into account that it's not only the expansion, but it becomes now part of the Champions League ecosystem. So Leagues Cup will fit into this. And it's great, Jason, that you've been talking about USA and Mexico, but for us, we see it beyond the USA and Mexico. We just announced late last year the expansion of our Champions League, and we're so excited about it because you can see it right now. It's like if you see this weekend, there are 4 teams of the MLS with the opportunity to go through, and we are just looking forward to that competition. We have Comunicaciones from Guatemala that have had an amazing trip into this quarterfinals of Champions League, winning the CONCACAF League. So we are excited about that part, and we're excited about the possibilities. You see, it's endless. And the most we increase the competition, not only between these 2 leagues, we are going to continue growing as a confederation, because at the end of the day, it's important. The MLS and Liga MX are super important for the whole confederation, but even for them, the 2 of them isolated are not going to succeed if they don't have a strong system in the rest of the confederation. So I think it's a great opportunity where we're seeing, but it has to be included in the rest. And the good thing, and something that we haven't talked here, is we're talking about more games, but I don't think right now, even with this bubble, everybody has all the programming needs that they require to cover their grids. You see out there a lot of reruns, so it means that there's opportunity for more competitions. Maybe not at the same price as the most expensive leagues, but there's opportunity for more competitions, and that's great.
We have time for some questions. If anyone has a question, there'll be a gentleman in the back with a microphone right up here in the front. Just 1 second. Okay, the question is for Alberto.
As a broadcaster, what are your expectations from the license?
For the license,
From the owner?
no escuché.
For the rights,
The owners of the owners.
For the owners. Well, that is something that we have to work on it, because as I mentioned at the very beginning, we have a business model in Liga MX is different than any other country, at least in Latin America. All teams, or the majority of the teams, are supported by different companies in different business. Soccer is not their core business, so they support the sport, but they have different interests. So as a first step, I think we have to unify all the criteria around the sport, and that will come in a new model of business for soccer in Mexico. I think we have 18 owners, or probably less than 18 owners in Mexico with different interests. We need to unify those criteria as a first step to have a good business model in the Liga MX.
Adam, I got one last question. Relevant Sports, Stephen Ross, the owner of the Dolphins, owns Relevant. They've had their summer competitions with bringing clubs over here. They bought the rights, the commercial rights, for UEFA's next round. So how will that affect the media rights going forward? We know that the estimate that CBS and Univision pay already, they paid allegedly $250 million for the commercial rights. Does that cover television? Does that just cover just commercial rights and all? What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to what we were talking about. You know, when you have the short cycle and what you can do with the rights in a limited time. I think that, you know, there is always the possibility that you price something so high that the market does eventually plateau and eventually it has to react to it. And when it's kind of public information, or at least it's highly speculated on the amount that the rights have already been paid for, you know that that's the number they're going to be seeking in the market. And that puts a lot of pressure on all sides to deliver. You know, it makes me think that, you know, usually in that situation, you'd want to have kind of your ducks in a row, and you kind of have a pretty good idea of what the value is of the property you're acquiring. Certainly, you know, when we look at an acquisition of that nature, we want to have a pretty good idea of how to mitigate that risk ahead of time, you know, with, you know, really good market research on what the property's worth. So, but again, at some point when you're dealing with shorter cycles and, you know, super high dollar values, there will probably be a day when that comes back to haunt someone holding the bag. I don't know that that's now, but it's one thing that we are always keeping an eye on, trying to avoid being in the middle of for ourselves from a risk standpoint.
One thing about media rights, they keep going. It's a never-ending story, and it's really the value. It's the backbone of the sport. Obviously, outside the players, and it's those television rights and this content. Live sports content is king, and for the foreseeable future, that remains the case. So this has been our panel. I hope you guys picked up some things and learned some things. My thanks to Alberto Sosa, Tudiene and Televisa, Adam Schneider from Sport 5, Oscar Sanchez from CONCACAF, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you very much.